And we are live with Big E. He's back. Try
What
not
up?
to try not to have internet troubles this time.
Yeah, well, we're on hotel Wi-Fi, so you know it's gonna be that much better
That's
bandwidth.
it's
Yeah.
very nice. You were saying you just got rained out.
Oh, so we don't get rained out. We still work in the rain, and it's easier because there's less stuff on the job site going on. But it doesn't really matter this week. This week I'm over at Manitowoc headquarters, so we're doing some teardown setup and training. So all good business.
So you testing all week?
I've testing. So there's tests every day, and then tomorrow's like the big cumulative, like you get your cert or you don't test. So we
Ooh,
got a class a little bit early today. A bunch of us met up to study and go through some notes and try to see if we're at where we think we are. So,
you think you
but yeah,
are?
I feel okay about it. It's not my strongest machine type that I'm testing on, but you know, got to get it done.
So is this inside, outside, upside down of the whole line of things that they have? Like, walk me through what they're
So
testing
yeah,
you on.
so like each class you do is a specific. There's like learning paths. So there's like your domestic. So I work for Manitowoc Crane. So you have Grove Cranes, which is a brand that Manitowoc owns. You have Manitowoc Cranes, and then they have a couple other brands. So I'm a Grove specialist. So there's a learning path called Grove Domestic, and it's anything that Grove makes domestically. So like your RT rough terrains, um, it'll have like your GHC, like your hydraulic telescoping crawler cranes, your TMS, which is like your boom truck cranes. And then the other side of Grove is called GMK, which is your German made or Euro made cranes, which is your all terrains. So 4 to 7 axle, 4 to 8 axle, wildly complicated, wildly strong machines. Like they make them up to 400 metric ton.
Whoa.
They'll pick a lot. Um, and you know, they get luffers on them and all that kind of stuff. So I'm finishing up the last of my domestic classes before I move into the GMK territory. So
And that's just how the pyramid goes.
it doesn't have to be, but because they're even though they're the same brand, they're very very different types of machines. But in my opinion, and I think in a lot of people's opinion, GMKs are tougher than the domestics because you have the translation factor. There's a lot more componentry. The schematics don't read out the same. They're bigger dollar machines, and they have a lot more complicated processes and technologies in them. But just like anything, you know, you plug into it with your laptop and you can turn it into a paperweight in about 2 seconds.
Nice.
Yeah. So trying to avoid that.
Which is the opposite of what you're trying to do.
Yeah. 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 We're trying to make it work more, not less.
It's exciting, dude.
Yeah, it's a lot. But yeah, I got here Sunday and then walked in Monday morning at 6:30 and had a 2-page test
Ah,
on the stuff from the last time I was here, which for me wasn't too long ago, it's a couple months ago. But some guys, depending on how their company does training, could have been a year, could have been 2 years. So you kind of got to stay up in the know on it. So it's kind of a fine mix because you want the classes close enough that you retain the knowledge from the ones before, but you want enough time that you can take the skill set you've just learned and go out and see enough of those machines to have hands on. Like if I teach you how to do diagnostic software stuff from a PowerPoint versus giving you a machine to plug into and run everything, for me, I learn way faster with hands on
same.
the machine, plugging in all that kind of stuff. If you just teach me theory, in theory it works, right?
My big thing about theory is like understanding.
Yeah,
Like, like this is reading a book about it, and this is kind of how it works. But
right.
that's not the same as like troubleshooting on site.
Right. Yeah. So like if I know, I mean, the theory to understand like your CAN link software and like your CAN architecture and like how all the computers and modules talk to each other is important. So that when I get to the field and I see a problem with this part, I can be like, all right, well, I can do this, this, and this, but I can't do that. In theory, that thing only talks to this part. So these parts are all good. There's no problem there. So I can narrow down. It just makes you more efficient at diagnostics, um, which is like a big chunk of my, at least for me, I know there's technicians do a lot of repair work, this kind of thing. I do a lot of diagnostics, and then I do weld work too, which is not so specific to training. Manitowoc does have a welding program so that you can weld up the big lattice booms because they are a very, very particular way of doing those because there's a lot of risk involved in them. So,
Right.
yeah.
Whew.
Yeah.
Is there smoke coming out of my ears?
You got your headphones on, just redirecting yourself back in.
Yeah, good, 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 good. Hmm.
No,
It's
it's good.
exciting.
Yeah, this time around, it's the same group that I was with last time. So some camaraderie there. A couple of classmates I knew. One of them actually works for my company in a different branch, and the rest of them are kind of all over the place.
Nice.
It's always nice to catch up with them, and kind of you know the guys you're gonna go study with, and you know the guys that are gonna go out to the casino and be there until 2 in the morning.
Totally.
Uh, yeah, but no,
Which is what those trips are for, right?
yeah, absolutely, yeah. When your company
100%.
company spends 5 grand for the class and another 5 grand to fly you in hotels, yeah, absolutely, just fuck off.
Wow.
Yeah. We had that at Deer. Like when Deer used to send you to schools, if they didn't host them, you'd go to like a different dealership to the school. And you have dudes that are like, "Are you going out tonight?" I'm like, "Oh my God, it's too no, we have a test tomorrow." Yeah, I'll go out. And like whenever they say they go out, they're going to the casino. Because this one place that we went where they put us up in a casino because it was the closest hotel to the facility. Dude, these dudes would be out like I'd be walking out in the morning because I like to be early to things. I'd be like on my way to the dealership to get ready for class, and these dudes would be leaving the casino floor to go up and shower real quick. I'm like, bro.
Holy shit. Yeah.
We had one dude, he went to 4 different classes, and two he bombed out of, and the other two were the retakes for those ones. I was like, dude, if I was your dealership and paying this much money, I would not, I'd either say, hey, you're not allowed to do this, or we're not going to send you. We'll send somebody that actually gives a fuck. Right. So,
Yeah. I mean, even if you're the strongest tech or whatever, like if you're not retaining the information or taking it seriously, that's just a big waste of money.
yeah. Well,
Wow.
that's the thing is like most of the courses that I've gone to build off of one another. So, like, if you fail the class I'm in now, you don't get to go to the next one. You have to wait for the whole next cycle because the class is only offered however many times throughout the year. And if the class was full from the group before, if they don't have anybody fail out of that class, you can't hop in with them. So it's it can be a long game. Like we've had guys go through the course by no fault of their own, like a class gets canceled, right? Well, if your class schedule is they do 4 classes for that course and it's only 1 year, every 3 months you go to school, they cancel that one. You either, unless they're planning to find another one, you're waiting a calendar year to go to the next one. It's a long time to not have like, what's a VCC perm? I know
Yeah.
what it is. I just saw it a couple months ago, but if it's not something you use, like you don't really use book, I don't really use book terms when I'm out in the field, so to speak. Like I know, like, hey, I know what this pin does on this machine. I don't know what the name of it is. I don't know that by default it's supposed to have X amount of voltage or this, that. So that's kind of where you want time to run the machines, but you also want time uh
In the classroom.
in the classroom. So
Yeah. Pretty cool shit. You are the traveling man.
a little bit,
I'm a big fan of it, dude.
yeah. It's good. I'm excited. On this weekend, I got some time with the kiddos. We're gonna split them up, so to speak, and have some one-on-one time with each of them because that's the thing that like we don't really get very much of it, right? Because when you have the kids, you have both kids,
Right.
so they don't really get a lot of one-on-one parent time. And I think we're gonna try to work those in more into our schedule, just so we get some one-on-one time with each kid, and they get a little bit of that. So Saturday, me and the monster are gonna go and do whatever she wants to do, which is probably gonna be park, ice cream, and like if the
Solid
weather,
day.
yeah, solid day. Can't she doesn't know wrong.
My son, I get every other weekend. We did more before, but he's very busy. It was
Mhm.
like I was getting in his way.
Yeah.
Not really, but you're throwing off his schedule, right? And then my daughter, I get every weekend, and during the week and all that kind of stuff. So on his weekends, I make sure that we have a full day with just each other.
Yeah.
And then we have a day with them together,
Yeah.
because I think that's important too. But that one-on-one time is really important, especially as they're
It is.
growing up and they got
Yeah.
questions and they don't want to be asking in a room full of people. And it's
Yeah.
just all that bonding time too, right?
Yeah. And that's the thing, right? Like you give your kids all your attention when you're home, right? But if there's two of them, then you're giving like, logistically, you're giving 50% of your time or energy. And when you get to do the one-on-one thing, you get more of it. But that's the thing, like in situations like you and I have, like, there's no like playbook for it, right? So like, um, if you are not a single parent or shared custody parent, I should say, um, you can do one-on-one time whenever you work it out with, your partner, your spouse, or whatever. Um, it just has to be more planned out the other way. Luckily, I'm really blessed that their mom and I have a good relationship, so we can kind of work and do what works best for both of us and accommodate. Uh, but yeah, I mean the kids are numero uno, so that was always kind of the big thing. So it's worked well. But yeah, daughter's got like summer ballet, and then she's gonna get ready for her fall or her dance season, so to speak. And then little man's gonna play soccer this year. See how he likes that. Although they've been watching a lot of the Olympics at their mom's place, and
Nice.
there was a lady that just won. What did she just win? She won some kind of like, oh, trampoline and gymnastics. So she won the trampoline
Oh,
competition, but she went to school for paleontology and archaeology. So she gets as an adult to play on a trampoline and study dinosaurs. And every kid's like, that's it. I don't know what that looks like, but she's got a PhD in dinosaurs and she's got a gold medal in trampoline. Like, you're making kids fucking dreams come true.
yeah, my daughter be all over that.
Right. Yeah. Kids tune in, they're like, I don't know. I want that. Whatever that is.
Yeah.
Like, you make the argument, right? It's like when we were growing up, parent teachers are like, you'll never make money looking out the window. And then every trucker and every welder ever's like, eat shit, Susan.
Yeah, Susan.
But
Yeah, you're not making any money doing your job, Susan,
yeah, right. Yeah. You're just sitting here making sure that I don't put gum under the seat of my school bus, nerd.
which you're not even good at.
Yeah.
Stick the gum.
But no, it's good. I talking with somebody the other day, and he's got a kid. He has a kid that's like getting like early high school, and he had some of his
Hmm.
buddies over. And he's not in the trade. So my buddy's not, he's corporate. He's the chief financial officer for a bank. So
Wow.
very right. Like he does okay.
Eh,
Um, but like his kids are interested, not necessarily in that. So like they wanted to ask me some questions about the trades. And I realized at that point that I know so little outside of my world. So like you in your realm, you deal with a bunch of trades, right? You
for
got
sure.
electricians, plumbers, construction, drywallers, all that kind of stuff. I deal with two, maybe three. I deal with other mechanics,
Hmm.
operators who are sometimes the bane of my existence, and the linemen who are always the bane of my existence. And like I know what they do and what they make and how that process works. And I have a general idea about the other one, but it's super interesting to think that outside of your scope of work, it's almost like a little bubble, right? Like if somebody went to talk to you about machine operating, you don't really use them on job sites. Like you might have like you might have a man lift or like a man basket for certain applications, but you don't use equipment. Um, Likewise, like if we talk to somebody that worked in an office building, like, and you mentioned construction, they think of dudes in safety vests and hard hats. So like they're the ones out there doing stuff. What are
Yeah.
they doing? Stuff with the making the stuff.
Construction stuff. And you're
Right.
like,
Yeah.
oh, okay.
Yeah. Cool. Basic dude stuff. Like you ask somebody, they're like, oh, my husband's in whatever, my girlfriend's in this. Like, oh, what do they do?
They
Make, build stuff.
they sure do.
Yep, nailed it. All right. Anyways, how about that NBA and all those touchdowns?
Yeah, it is kind
But
of crazy. I've been very fortunate in that because I used to be a carpenter and a framer, like steel framer. So I kind of got to see all of it. We would get
yeah,
there before anything was there. So we would see everything get cut up and then the plumbing go in, and then all the other trades come through, and then we would turn it white and finish it, right? Um, and then being a site super, I kind of got to see the rest of it, structural steel and HVAC and, all those types of things. But I mean, I'm in the same boat though. Like if I try to get too specific about any of it, I'm like, I don't know. Like what do the prints say? I know how to read the prints. I know
Right.
how to
Yeah.
like read the manuals, but like I couldn't tell you specifics on stuff.
Right. And like, I don't know. I just know that like for my line, especially with cranes, right? If the crane isn't working, there are a lot of people doing nothing
Right.
because typically the crane's not there. I mean, like in tower, I think tower cranes are a little bit different. Like they put them up and they're using for everything, whether it's hanging beam, picking up this pallet, moving a bucket of tools over here, picking a skid steer up, whatever they need to do with them. But because I don't work with towers at all, really, um, my cranes are mobile cranes, so they get brought in for a specific purpose to pick X, Y, and Z. They'll pick other stuff if they have time, but typically it's for specific lifts. Um, but it's super wild. Like when I worked for Deere and you'd see them take this giant farm field, you'd come back and it would be, rough cut. And then they'd make final grade. Then concrete comes in to do their thing. And now when I get there, everything's flat and then they start hanging stuff. And then the next time you come in, it's for a different crane company because they're hanging, the reefer units on the roof or they're hanging the sign on the side of this building. Um, but yeah, just you don't really see outside of your scope, at least not in my world, like you do if you're like for an electrician, you probably get to see plumbers and construction and framers because they're all part of your intertwined working. It's not, well, when I get there, there's none of these guys there. Like if you're an electrician, there's probably not a lot of concrete guys there when you're there because in theory that's done.
That's
Doesn't
right.
mean that it's redone, right? Um, but yeah, it's definitely cool to go on to job sites that have lots of moving pieces. If they build building A and they're working on setting building B, like their precast modules, I'll see all the other trades in
Yeah.
the building, but like I'm not a part of it, which I'm not upset about, not my wheelhouse. I know what I'm good at and I know what I'm not good at. And if I put my little, dummy stick on it and it gets bright, then I know that wire's hot and we don't touch that.
Good.
Big brain power.
Yeah.
Um,
We don't bite that one.
right, right.
Yeah. Um, I think some of the coolest stuff with the cranes, I had never seen core slab put in,
Yeah,
and that's pretty dope, man.
yeah,
It's like a big puzzle of like enormous pieces of concrete. I'm like,
yeah.
okay,
You're like, all right, cool. We're just gonna, yeah, we'll make sure this doesn't, this is cool. The coolest thing that I think I've seen, some of the biggest stuff I've seen, oil refineries, obviously, they're moving
oh
stuff like that. Like you watch them, so you have a crawler and they'll pick something up and they'll either use, if it's a critical lift, they'll use a secondary crane. So they'll pick the whole thing up with the big crane on the top end, and he'll start lifting, and the other guy so that he can lower it down and swing out and get the big, the tube or the stack or whatever it is vertical. And just seeing how that works because doesn't happen overnight. In my eyes, it's a very slow process because I'm not used to that style of lifts and picks and stuff like that. Um, but yeah, that's super cool. Anything to do with military bases is cool. Downside, you don't get to take pictures or
yeah,
really like talk about certain things. But it is cool to see kind of how what they use cranes for that are kind of non-traditional. Like nobody builds a cranes like this is what this is gonna do. They're like that'll work for us. Um, like there was two MLC 650s, so 650-ton crawler, big motherfuckers.
no kidding.
And they went out to the naval base and they were going to pick trying to figure out how to word it. They picked up a boat that went underwater, but they
Oh
picked up the whole thing out of the water. Which, if you know anything about those, they're the size of buildings.
yeah,
So that was super cool. But hey, you just get to see a lot of cool stuff. It's a lot of cool places. Last year, I think I hit 45 states, 40
nice.
states. This year I've hit less but I've spent more nights away because I'm going back to bigger projects. Um, which I mean, I like seeing different places. There's certain places that you go to and you're like, eh.
Yeah.
There's places you go to that are super cool, like the Baltimore Bridge. The cranes that were out there after that thing got struck with it by the container ship. Um, that was kind of cool to see. Go up to mine country and you see how they use like you think cranes are big, and then you see them next to like a mine shovel.
Yeah.
Like a D11 dozer is the biggest dozer the Caterpillar makes. I went to an open pit where that D11 was the smallest piece of equipment out there. Yeah.
I've seen some of those pictures where somebody is standing in the bucket
Yeah.
and they're like the size of the tooth of the bucket.
Yeah.
And you're
So
like, that's cool.
if you scroll, I think it's on my Instagram. I think I posted a picture. And this is a pretty small mine shovel. And I don't know if this is gonna like pick this up, but
Yo.
that's like a small mine shovel. And um I mean it's big, that's bigger than most people will see in action. I think the biggest one I've worked on was um like a big dipper stick. So like a dipper being the shovel portion. Um and we had to reskin it. So you basically take all the wear pads out, all the sides out of it, and then re-weld new metal into it, covered hard face. And it was well, my buddy Dan just did one. And he used 13 spools of wire plus all the metal. So a spool of wires 20 pounds each. So and that's just the weld to hold the metal on. But yeah, you can get wild with it. Like how much material, like, hey, we're gonna add, 4,000 pounds of steel to this thing.
Oof.
You're like, we're adding it, right? So like then you think about how big the machine is that adding 4,000 pounds of weight that isn't material that it doesn't affect it is, and it's pretty cool.
Well, and then when
But
that scoop is full, like
mhm,
yeah, when you start doing the math, it's like that. So
yeah,
these are enormous.
yeah. Like Mac is it Plovy? He runs a company called Earthworks Media, and they're up in
Well, I've seen
the
Earthworks on Instagram.
yep. So Mac's up there at one of the big coal mines, and they're doing like high seam, low seam. And I mean, you're talking, I mean, like one of the trucks hauls 160 metric ton of coal. And I think they said they fill one every, fuck, it's like 10 minutes. I'm not good with numbers. I think he said like 10 minutes. So you think about the fact that like in 1 hour of work, you're moving six of them. So you're moving what, 740 ton times, a
Yeah,
full day. And things work, if they work 18s or 24s, like you're moving millions of pounds. And that's just one of them. That's not
yeah.
the fact that they have 80.
Holy shit.
Big coal seam. Yeah, it's crazy. Like, it's just wild to see how that works. Um, but yeah, I don't know. It's cool. You get to see a lot of cool stuff. Like when I work with linemen, you get to see like the big power. Um, so we have these Bronto skylifts, which are like 300-foot man baskets. So they can go
Oh,
320 feet up and
oof.
they go 100 feet away from center. Yeah, they're pretty wild. But they get tested if they're insulated. And so Bronto tests them on this big, basically a big power plug. They plug into it and they send voltage through the boom. Um, and I think they did one. It was like 1,000,000 volts, and like it's so much power that all you hear is the electricity,
Humming.
and everything is just blue. There's this big metal cage around it to keep people away from like arc jumps and stuff like that. But it's just like, um,
That's
yeah,
dope.
it's ridiculous. They have this one piece, this ring on them, and the ring is like your isolator, and it's like thin metal, like what your mic stand is made out of is probably thicker.
Whoa.
Yeah, that ring that's this big, it's just an angled ring that's sharp. 25 grand. So like these companies will basically take like a bicycle tire and cut it and then put it over it and then bungee it to keep it from getting banged around and transport under the cover.
Yeah.
But like anytime you put crane and rigging or safety on anything, add zeros to the prices. So like in crane world, hey, this is a hoist sensor, right? In that same sensor in a skid steer might be $200, and in the cranes you're 850. I thought there's like oil pressure sensors that are like $1,500,
That's nuts.
and
That's
that's like the
like
smallest component in this giant machine.
that's like baby or wedding, or
Yeah,
and now crane is now part of that.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah. Oh, these are flowers. They're nice. Oh, these are wedding flowers. Same flower with a white ribbon on it. You add a zero, baby.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, don't you love her?
Yeah, that's
You're
about
like,
it.
yeah. I mean,
Oh, is
we
it
better.
what's the price you're putting on your child? Well, if I can't afford it, then it doesn't really do us much good now, does it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the kids got to eat. Yeah.
Like, do you want the
um.
kid to have this cool stroller or do you want meals?
Yeah, it's funny. Hey, I remember our first baby shower, and it was like we're setting up this registry, and I'm like, you can't ask people to buy this shit. Like, it
Yeah.
was just so crazy. But and that's what it's for, and I think people
Yeah.
understand that. But like, I was so young, man. I was like 22 or something. So like, these numbers were numbers that I was not accustomed
You're
to.
like, whoa, whoa, back it up here. Wait up, hold a minute.
Yeah, like, does it drive itself? And they're like, no,
Right. Right.
it does say Graco on it though, or whatever. And you're like,
Yeah.
okay.
Like, oh, okay, yeah, all right. We in this, yeah. I remember I went to like a baby shower for one of my buddies, and somebody's mom had gotten him this stroller, and it looked like the old school kids strollers, like the weird like metal loops, like it looked like a
Yeah.
yeah. That thing's like $1,800.
Whoa.
I'm like, I think that costs more than like people's first vehicles.
Yeah,
Well,
dude.
don't you want your baby to be safe? I'm like, I could put memory foam in my Pelican case, and that baby's safe as shit.
Yeah.
Right?
Little,
Just cut an air hole in it. Yeah.
I was gonna say breathing holes. See, we're on the same page.
Yeah.
Can we talk about that crane that fell over?
Which one? The one that I was at or the other one?
Yeah. No, the
Yeah.
one you were at.
Yeah. So it's like Friday. Yeah. So I got a call like 2 in the afternoon. I was done. We got early. We got on early. I just sat down and I was about to have a beer. Phone rings. I'm like, "Psh, I don't answer my phone on Fridays." Well, then my other phone rings. I'm like, all right, somebody's
Mm.
trying. And I missed the call, and then I see a text. Crane tipped over. Call me. I'm like,
Ugh.
perfect. So we get out there and like we're driving through. I had my foreman with me, and we get out there and I'm like, like cranes are pretty easy to spot, right?
I don't see it. Yeah.
Well, this one's obviously taking a nap. So I'm like, I wonder if we can find this crane because they just gave us like a neighborhood, right? And all of a sudden we turn this corner and there's like 30 people in lawn chairs all start cheering when they see my service truck. I'm like, I think
Yeah.
we found it. So yeah, we round this corner and this thing is like, so they backed in to where they were going to pick. And from the road, you can see the underside of the truck flipped nose up, and the boom is over the back driver's side, the rear driver's side. So I get out there and, throw the beacons on or whatever. And we go, is anybody hurt? Blah, blah, blah. No police are there, which I thought was a little odd, but I
It's a
guess
little shocking.
and then I see this company has one of their bigger cranes there as well. And I said, yeah, we're talking about it, taking our initial, some pictures, some measurements and stuff like that for our report. And they were doing tree work. And last pick of the day, their footing gave out, and they put, a 5 foot long, 10 foot sticking out leg completely underground. Like the whole thing was, 15 feet under the lawn. And boom is they missed the house by like 6 feet maybe. And they got a lot of stick out. Nobody's hurt. Operator's good. There was a guy up in the tree, the climber, and he's good, a little shaken up. But no house damage. Nobody was injured. So yeah, then it was at that point like trying to figure like, all right, so how do we get this thing back to where it needs to be? And you can't run the crane in that position. Obviously, you can't even turn the engine on because there's all the oil's on the wrong side of the engine.
Totally.
So we're trying to figure this out. We set up the other crane in the street, kind of review its load chart and realize that we need more. So we call these big rotators in, which are like the tow trucks on steroids. So they're
Nice.
55 ton they're like mini cranes. They're really short, but they're super heavy. Um, we get there out there, and then one of the senior guys from that company was like, "Hey, I've done this before." I'm like, "Sweet, like, let us know what you need. I'll give you crane feedback, give you some lift points, stuff like that. We'll kind of get it going." I ended up cutting off sections of the boom that were damaged because we weren't going to be able to telescope them in. But yeah, I cut off 72 foot of stick, which is a pretty sizable chunk of metal.
Yeah, dude.
Uh, and yeah, we get that, cut and start to raise the crane up and get it tipped back upright. And then once we get it upright, fired it up, stored it up, sucked whatever was remaining in the boom in, and spun around. And I thought that we were towing it back, right? Because that would make sense. They drove it back to our shop. So we got done at like 2:30 in the morning. So it was like a 12 and a half hour service call. Real long day. But yeah, it was not that was my first crane recovery from a boom truck. I've done a couple on the RT side and one on the crawler side. It's never a good day, no matter if an operator's at fault, not at fault, whatever. Like you just feel bad, right? In general, nobody
Totally.
got hurt with like the big win, um, because a lot of shit can go wrong, and especially when it starts going wrong, it snowballs very quickly.
Um, so Brawley very quickly has become a big fan of you. Like we dick around on videos back and forth, and when I have him, he's like, he just loves it.
Yeah,
So when I showed him that video of your like when you're checking the big brake
yeah,
fluid, just
yeah.
flip over the crane or whatever, he was like, just flip the crane over like for like 2 weeks. And I was like, I know that that's funny, but like, it's kind of not funny too. And then we started talking about it. And I was like, if that boom had landed in the middle of the house, it would have just cut the house in half.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Like there's no stopping that much
See
weight coming down.
right. So, and I guess small is relative, but like in my world, like it's a small crane. It's a 55-ton national. So we had 132 foot of stick out. Um, Thing weighs 82,000 pounds, roughly.
Exactly.
So like it's not big in crane land, but to have come through your house is very big,
Yeah.
right? But yeah, there's a lot. I mean, a lot can go wrong, right? And so like there's all these checks in place. So you have your operators that have to go through, the CCO course for your crane operators license and take all these continued learning classes. And some companies do them and do a really great job. And there's some companies that, hey, our foreman has a license, so we can all work here under his license. And it is what it is. But yeah, that was definitely a little bit of a surprise on a Friday. Had plans that night too, and just ended up not getting to do those. I got back and I was like, I'm going to bed. So like, I'm gonna rack out and try again tomorrow.
Yeah. You remember
Uh,
when I got home today tired and it's
yeah,
been 15
yeah,
hours since then?
yeah,
I'm tired
yeah.
still.
I started that Friday at like 4:30 in the morning.
Yeah.
When we got done early, I still worked a 10-hour day. So I worked that and then I had it out for another 12. So it was 20, 20 something hours in a day, which was a good day. It was long, good paycheck, but
I like doing those timestamp days. I used to do them a lot in the beginning, where
yeah,
because in the very beginning I thought that I was never going to get any work, so I just accepted everything,
yeah,
and I would just stipulate like what time can I be here working, and
yeah,
that it wasn't price, it wasn't like scope, it was just like what are my restrictions for hours. So I was doing like 16s and 18s and like all that kind of stuff was like a regular thing. Um, so the other day when I did that, whatever it was, 21 or 23 hours or whatever that was, everybody's like putting all this stuff in the back of my head. I'm like, it's just a regular day for you.
right, yeah, and like it all depends too, because like I definitely have regular days where it's
Oh,
only
totally.
only a 10-hour day, and then there's days that a 10-hour day feels like a 20-hour day, and it's all relative. I know that like the big thing now you have is people are like, oh, you only worked 40 hours part time this part. I'm like, so don't get me wrong, I'm an overtime whore. I
Mm,
will Overtime, throw it my way. I'll absolutely. You want to pay me more money for doing the same? Yeah, all right. But a big thing that I see is like you can have guys that make $20 an hour, right? If you work 60 hours in a week, you have 20 hours at time and a half, depending on your pay structure, you have time, 20 hours of time and a half. If you go and find a job where you're making $25 an hour or $26 an hour, you could work 40 and make that same amount.
Right.
But you could work 60 and now you're making 25 to 30% more, right? Um, and that's kind of the thing is like finding your home life balance. And the way that I have my schedule with my kids is good because I'm not one to shy away. Like I'm not going to tell you no, right?
Mm.
So unless my kids are like my not my out, but like that's my hard the
Yeah.
days
So
that I have, I will leave at this time. I will see you the next day at this time. You can call me as many times as you want in between then. I'm not answering
no.
because like I know my personality and like when my kids go on vacation with their mom or there's a long stretch where I don't have them, like you look at those weeks and it's like 85, 90.
Yeah.
Like I'll burn it until it doesn't burn anymore, right? So I think it's important that everybody kind of find that balance for them. And it's gonna be different for everybody. Like some people, 40 hours, depending on what their job is and if they have a passion for it, like 40 hours it's a lot for them, right?
Hmm.
45, 50. But the one thing I learned, I forget somebody said it. He goes, you base your life off 40 and everything else is cake, right? So like
No.
our apprentices typically and interns are the ones that get bit by that. They get hired on when it's busy and they're working 50, 55 hours a week. Oh, well, I make this much money. So they go and buy a bunch of stuff that they can afford when they're making that 15 hours overtime. Well, then when the overtime disappears or there's a layoff, they're like, well, what am I supposed to do? I'm like, yeah, see, now that, $110,000 pickup truck doesn't seem like a great idea.
I guess I didn't need to get it lifted.
Right.
Be
Like
like, yeah, no
we had an
shit.
apprentice, yeah, we had an apprentice that bought, and he bought a brand new. So it was like 2021 or 2022, 3,500 Denali.
Whoa.
He put the American forces on it, deleted, did all this stuff to it, right? His truck payment was like 15 or $1,600 a month, which as an apprentice, like that's a good chunk of your income after taxes. But he lived with his parents, right? So while I live with my parents, I'm like, well, you can be living there for like the next 7 years. He goes, why would you say that? I'm like, all of your income is going to it. You're not saving any money, right?
Hmm.
Like you can't save enough to go buy out on your own, and you don't make enough to just start renting somewhere else, right? Um, Also, your truck payment's more than my rent. What are you doing?
Right.
But I don't know, like you just kind of learn. And like when I'm on the road, right? I make more money because I usually work long. Like if I'm already going to be gone, I might as well work. Uh,
100%.
but then we get like per diem. Like I have an expense account for food, so like when I go and get lunch or dinner, it's all on the company card, my hotel. So like my living expenses for the weeks that I'm gone are smaller, right? I'm not buying food or Monster or whatever it is. Um, And then the weeks that I'm home, obviously, I have my kids, so the expenses go up, so to speak. So it's kind of a balancing act, but you just have to be smart about it. And like tools are a big thing in the trades, right? And especially
Hmm.
for me, everybody wants Snap-on, Matco, which is great. I mean, they make great tools. They have a good warranty. There's a guy that comes to you to change your tools out and make sure everything's good. But you don't need to buy everything with that logo on, right? Like I have a lot of Snap-on tools. I have a lot that aren't, right?
Yeah.
Also, they're like, well, it's just $50 a week. I'm like, Snap-on credit is, let's say it's $50 a week. They base those off of 255 week loans.
Whoa.
So 5 years. So you bought this toolbox. It's only $100 a week, $400 a month for 5 years for a thing that holds your tools.
Seems excessive.
Right. So like I mean I have a Snap-on toolbox. I started with a Milwaukee Home Depot.
Okay. Can I just stop and you break this thing down and everyone that's listening is like, that's ridiculous. And then you're like, yeah, it's totally ridiculous. So I have it.
Yeah. So I started, but that's the thing though, right? So like I didn't get a Snap-on toolbox when I was the new guy.
No, you got it when you afforded it. Yeah.
Right. So like I looked at what I spent on tools and what I had allocated to spend on tools and what I needed. And I had bought in the Home Depot buy one get one. I spent like $400 for the bottom and the top was free, right?
Dope.
Loaded that thing with high value tools. So like I had Snap-on tools and Matco and Mac and Milwaukee in this generic toolbox. Well, those toolboxes aren't really meant to have somebody go in and out of them all day long and be loaded with 3,000 pounds of tools. So they get worn out.
Right. Yeah.
And then usually when you buy a toolbox, they give you a pretty good trade-in price. So like I paid $500 for the toolbox. Snap-on dealer gave me 1,800 for trade-in, right? And people are like, wow, look at that. Okay, well, the toolbox that you're replacing with costs $8, $9, $10, $15,000, right? So I got mine because he had it on the truck. It was a repo box, so the guy that bought it didn't make enough payments and they took it back.
Awesome.
So brand new toolbox, had all the mats in it, still like the guy didn't even use it. But it was a toolbox on the truck. It was all black, which is what I wanted. Black logos, drawers, everything, no chrome on it. And he offered me a really good deal for my trade-in, offered me a good deal for the box, and I was like, sweet. Moved all my stuff into it, and then just by turn of events, like three months later, I moved into a service truck, so then I didn't need a toolbox.
Right.
But like you get to the point where like I could sell it and make that money, and then you think about it, you're like, but if I go back into the shop at some point, I'm either buying it again, and the price has gone up, right? So like the box that I have now has gone up in price, and now I think they're like 15 grand or 16 grand for toolbox, right? They're super nice. Not knocking them. I like Snap-on tools. But again, it kind of comes down to like what you can afford, what you need, and also your rep. If your Snap-on rep isn't good, the tool is only as good as the guy that backs it. So if he's not going to warranty stuff out for you, why would you buy Snap-on, right? If
Right.
you're not going to get the whole point of it, then why would you do it?
So what could possibly make a toolbox cost that much? Like the fact that it can carry the weight, the fact that like the drawers don't jam up, like all the little pieces of it are
Yeah, so it's kind of like a sum of all its parts, right? Like, do I think they're worth that much? Absolutely not.
no, but
I didn't even pay half of that for mine. But like you know how you always see those videos of dudes open toolbox drawers and the toolbox tips because all the weight's out now?
yes.
Yeah, that doesn't happen with Snap-on boxes. That's their unicorn trick. But like the smallest drawer in my toolbox, I can open up and my big ass can stand in and it won't damage it.
Right.
Right. Um, they hold up to the wear and tear. The bearings are made to open and close all this time and have all this weight in them. And they hold their value. So like not to the same extent. They're not, I would not say they're an appreciating asset. They're still depreciating. But like if I wanted to go sell this toolbox, I could still sell it for 80 to 90% of what I paid for it. And I've had it for 3 years.
Because they last forever.
Yeah. Because
Yeah.
like we have a guy in our shop, he just retired. His toolbox is the same one that he bought from Snap-on 35 years ago. And it still runs the same as it did back then, right? But it's all about what you need, weighing out what you need, what you want, what you can afford, right? What you can afford and what you need, that's typically where you should stay. What you can afford and what you want, one thing, what you need, what you want if you can't afford it. But it all goes down like you have a work truck, your truck. You could have gotten something significantly more expensive and nicer. Did you need it and could you afford it? Do
Right.
you need it? No. Do you want it? Probably. Can you afford it? Maybe, but maybe you don't want to put your money into that. Maybe you want to put it into podcasting equipment or renovations at your house or, probably school or whatever.
Hmm.
So it all comes down to priorities, right? Like I could have a much nicer truck than what I do now. I don't need one, right? Like my truck does everything that I needed to do and what I wanted to do. I'm looking at getting a house. I know it's a great market to buy houses in. But yeah, I don't know. I think that there's such a big gap because you have people, and I won't say typically, but a lot of the time you have people that are coming from a job or a place where they're not making very much money. And it's becoming more public now, but like you make good money in the trades. Depending on what you're in, you can make a pretty hefty amount of money. So they go from not having money to having money, and then also being surrounded by coworkers that have big expensive toys,
Yeah.
and maybe not understanding like he's got this really big expensive truck that he can afford. On the flip side, he has a wife that makes about as much as he does. So when they split the housing costs, it's this. Or maybe they had the house before, or this, that, or the other thing. So it's always kind of like everybody always jokes about having that friend that's like, if you buy one, I'll buy one. Right.
Yes.
And it's like an unwritten rule in the trades. Like if somebody buys a new toolbox, the chances of somebody else in the shop getting another new toolbox, pretty good. Right.
Yeah.
Like, shit, I don't no good at that. Right. And nothing wrong with it, right? As long as you can afford your lifestyle and afford how you want to be, it's great.
A buddy of mine started calling that the golden handcuffs.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%.
Yeah. Where I want to look a certain way. I want to do things a certain way. I want my business perceived a certain way. And, now I got a big truck and now I got this and I got that and everything. But, now you
Now you're
have to
blocking it
do
working.
that.
Right. Yeah. Not like you buy the big expensive truck because you can afford it. Yeah. It's kind of like a boat, right? Like people can afford it. Like when I was looking at buying a boat, and I still am, but like, okay, I make enough to buy a boat now, working what I work. Well, working what I work now, I don't have the time to use the boat.
That's right.
But if I take the time to use the boat, then I'm not taking that time to make the money to afford the boat. So I can't really afford the boat if I want to use the boat, and I'm not looking for a lawn ornament.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's kind of you got to find your place on where your groove is, so to speak, and like where you can live, you can hold your own, and you're not, just out in la la land, just absolutely, boned on bills.
The,
Um, and you
the
got to
other,
leverage credit. And I don't want to say leverage debt, but credit cards are debt, but you can use them to your advantage. I mean, I'm not saying run up your Amex to $10,000 so you hit a spend limit. You're like, I got a free flight voucher. Yeah, well, that's a 29% interest rate. So enjoy paying that for the rest of your year, right?
yeah. Yeah. I mean, gotta have a plan, I want a boat. Okay. So you want to use that boat, right? Yeah. Okay. So what does that life look like? Well,
Right.
this is what that life looks like. Okay. So how do you get there from here where your life doesn't change? And then that's the plan, and then
Right.
you
And
and then
that's
you do the plan. And when you have a plan on the days that suck and on the days that you watch other people using a boat or whatever,
right.
you just kind of look at that, like you always see the movies where the cab driver folds down his thing, he's got a picture that he
Yeah.
looks at or whatever. It's the same shit.
Yeah. 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 Like you have a goal, and if you stick with it, then when it gets time to have that goal, maybe you don't have that goal anymore, but you're
Yeah.
significantly more financially, you're in a better place financially if you're like, I want a boat. Well, maybe it comes time to, when you had your idea of getting your boat, you have all your financial stuff in order, and you're like, I don't really want a boat. All right. Well, you're still ahead, right? Like you've still either saved the money or figured out your lifestyle or trimmed out the bullshit. Um, like if you look at how much money people spend at like takeout food or this, that, or the other thing, like, and
Crazy.
right. So like, I don't know who said it. So this isn't an original thought for me, but the big expenses aren't what kill people. It's all the little ones. It's the $10 every morning at the gas station and $15 at lunch and $20 for beer. And okay, you take that, let's say you spend $40 in miscellaneous bullshit a day. Every day, let's say just working week, 5 days a week, $200 times 4 weeks, $800. So between $800 and $1,000 a month on Monster and fucking roller dogs,
Yeah.
right? When you think about it, like you're spending a vehicle payment potentially, or a new business fund, or school money, or whatever it is on shit. Do you really need it, right? Like if you packed a lunch every day, or if you didn't, you bought a case of Monster from Costco instead of spending $6 for 3 cans or whatever the price is. It's all the little things that add up and you can save. So like that's kind of how I've looked at it. And I've gotten much better at it. And then I try to use like credit cards to my advantage. So I set like a warning, like when I get to a certain amount on my credit card, it's like, hey, and that's like no matter if I work a bare 40 hours a week, I can pay that amount off each month. So I pay all my balances in full. Um, because I travel so much, I'm really into like we've talked about like the points thing.
Mhm.
So like you try to stick with your programs, right? So like I try to fly Delta, I try to stay Hilton, try to rent from Enterprise so that I build rewards and loyalty so that when I want to take a vacation, well, I'm not spending my money anymore. I'm spending all the points and the miles and the hotel nights that I've accrued through work or personal or whatever it is, and you build, status, so to speak, or whatever. Um, and you can eliminate expenses. So now that vacation isn't $2,000. That vacation's 900 bucks, 800
Yeah.
bucks, or free, depending on how you do it. Right. Um, so you just kind of have to figure out what works really well for you. It's gonna be some trial and error. YouTube's a good resource. Like I've used that. Like for all my credit cards, I just watch YouTube videos to figure out what ones are gonna be the most beneficial to how I live. Like, yeah, everybody wants like the Amex Platinum or Black Card. If you're not buying flights all the time, it doesn't pay for itself. Like you don't get very many. You get like 1 point per dollar spent on regular stuff. You get 10 when you buy plane tickets, but if your company's buying your plane tickets, you're not buying plane tickets with it anyways, right?
Yeah.
So you have a card for status because it looks good in your wallet, but you're not getting the most out of it.
Yeah. And you know what? To that point, I had a scene visa for a long time because I
Mhm.
never had to pay to take the kids to the movies. I never had to pay to rent the movies that they wanted to see. Like, if you ended up getting a bunch, you could trade them in for like keg gift cards.
Yeah.
Like, I was like, this is kind of my jam. And I know everyone thinks it's stupid, but I'm in.
Right. So like I have a Saver One card from Capital One because you get 4 times or 4% back on food, convenience, grocery, restaurant, and then you get 10% back on food delivery services. Okay, well, I use that credit card when I go buy food or restaurant food or grocery store food or order DoorDash. Um, and then you get like in 1 month of spending on that card, I mean, I got basically 10% back on what I had spent or 8% back, I think is how to average it out, which doesn't sound like a lot, but if you don't think about it as oh, now I can spend this money, you just let it sit there, then you just keep building up. And then when you want to buy something, you have all of this cash back sitting there and you go buy something and use that to pay the credit card and it was free.
We had we had a buddy with a farm down the road. It was just him and his dad, and they had Canadian Tire, and they would go to Canadian Tire, and like watching this guy gas up was just like, come on, dude. Like we got to go to the thing that we're trying to get to every time. But he would like go in and he would get the magazine, like the flyer, and he would cut the coupon out and he would take it over and he would do his thing. But he was doing kind of what you were talking about, like everything just kind of like you get X amount more and then X amount more and then X amount more. And then when they needed something,
Yep.
they just went and bought it points. Like it was not
Yeah.
something that they had to worry about.
Yeah.
Um, this was still back in the day of like Canadian Tire money. So it
Yeah.
just looked like Monopoly money, and like they almost had a suitcase full of it.
Yeah.
And you would just go, like, you need a new snowblower? Okay. Like you
Yeah.
need a new saw or you need a new whatever.
So like for fuel, we have speedways around here.
Okay.
And I signed up for loyalty with like the 3 gas stations that I go to, and I go to Speedway more than anything else. Fill up the service truck, punch your phone number in, you get X amount of points. I think in each quarter I look at it basically for myself. So in every 3 months, I earn about $200 worth of points in a Visa gift card. Just get a gift card
Hmm.
next month or whatever. And like those are the ones where if you get points for fuel, then when you go in and you want to get a monster, you just pay with points, right? So that
Hmm.
you don't have to, this, that, or the other thing. So you can eliminate costs by just trying to be better about it financially. Um, and same thing goes with tools, right? Like you don't have snap-on rewards or whatever you want to call it, but if you don't need it, maybe don't buy it. And like I've talked to guys that are like, oh, that torque wrench is $1,600. Right. So the people that need that torque wrench typically that 1,600 hours isn't as big a deal, right? Because the guy that needs that specific wrench is probably a senior guy that's been doing this a long time and makes more money than you,
Right.
right? So that's kind of how I've always looked at it. Like the really expensive specialty tools aren't meant to be purchased. I mean, anybody can buy them, but they're not. Your target audience isn't your first and second year techs, right? Are they nice to have? Yeah, absolutely.
Hmm.
I'm also big on like the if you borrow it twice, you buy it the third time.
Huge.
That's just how you build your tools up. I remember when I started, anytime I still do it to this day. If I go to a shop and I'm the new guy in the shop, I'm not a new guy, but I'm new in that shop. I'll talk to like the senior techs and some of the other guys, and you build a big enough repertoire. Like, hey, do you mind if I look at your toolbox? And you look for the ones that are readily accessible and the ones that are worn out because that means it's been used a lot. So then you ask me like, hey, do you like would you buy this if you were, me, if I didn't have this already, is this a tool worth purchasing? And sometimes the guys are like, yeah, absolutely. I use it every day. Sometimes you buy it and you're not going to use it. And sometimes you buy it and you're like, I don't know why I've waited this long to have this tool. Right.
Hmm.
Um,
And sometimes it's the smallest thing. It's just super niche. And it's like, yeah, man. But when I use that, when I do this specific thing with that, it is way easier.
right.
Yeah. I'm finding that more and more in the drywall space where it's like, it's called a compound tube. It's basically like a syringe. So you fill it up full of mud and
Yep.
then there's different
Yep.
heads for it. There is a 2 foot tube that doesn't make any sense to have because it holds half as much as all the other tubes and whatever. But when you use it in conjunction with this special head for it, when you're putting on like off angles, it's cake. Like you're close enough to the head where you can hold the head because the problem is when you're doing it with a bigger tube, um, when you're pushing that mud out, the head wants to hydroplane
Yep.
and then it just makes a mess. So
Yep.
if it's short enough that you can hold the head against the wall and then run it,
Right.
but until I saw somebody using that, I never would have done that.
You're like, shit, that makes a lot more sense.
It's way faster. It's way less messy. It's like
Well, then
professionally
you're not
done.
right. And then you think about it, and you're like, well, now I'm not wasting material either, right? So you put the waste of material back into it, and you're like, this tool will pay for itself in five tape jobs or whatever, however you metric it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But yeah, I think that's the big thing is like some mechanics are flat rate. So flat rate mechanic, typically they're like dealerships for auto. All right, so you got a valve adjustment. You get 2 hours for it. If that job takes you 4 hours,
Yeah.
you are getting paid for two. If the job takes you 1 hour, you're getting paid for two, right? So, and that's how the mechanics used to be. So that your senior guys were making all these crazy, you flat rate, you made 90 hours this week. Well, you only work 40. You've just gotten
Right.
that good that you can flex it. And that's where you see like the mechanics that have, like, hey, this is a 10 millimeter wrench. I have 10 of them and they're all a little bit different because each job, this makes me faster, right? And in my world, you don't necessarily have it like that because we don't do flat rate, at least not where I work. Um, but as a mechanic, I'm always looking for tools that make my job easier, or more efficient because the faster I can get this done, the faster I can do this. Um, and honestly, I don't really like to just sit out there and waste customers' time. I know it's a wild concept.
Yeah,
Um,
right.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, case in point, we are flat rate basically. It's like a board foot price. So
Yep.
when it's done, you get paid, period. Um, Columbia came out with a 5.5 inch box, a little tiny thing. And it's like, where would you ever use that? And typically it's just for those off angles when you're putting in those big paper beads. Instead of having to go with a knife and just put it on, put it on, and put it on, and then smooth it out and whatever, you just run the box across it. It's like 10 times faster.
Yeah.
So it's like, why does not everybody have this?
Right.
And some guys are pretty quick, and some people
Yeah.
just want to use knives and that kind of stuff. But for me, I'm like 80% automatic tools. It's just the way that I've geared everything because eventually, when I'm like a ninja with it, you just like I know a guy that runs through a 7,000 board foot house, which is like 7 grand in that many days. So on a good job, you're making like $1,000 a day. pretty
Right.
good.
And that's kind of where you're at, like, how much more efficient can I get um, to make more dollars? And
Right.
depending on where you are mechanic wise, like where I am, if I'm more efficient up front, I'm not going to make any more money because I'm paid by a company to do a service that I render out to somebody else. But like the guys that go out and do it on their own, they're like, hey, I charge, when you're new, typically you charge like time and materials, right? Like I will charge you however many hours this takes me and this many materials. The longer you do it, you can say, all right, DOT inspection is going to be 2 hours. Grease and PM service is going to be 3 hours, whatever it is. If you can do it in less time than what it is, because you have a price built into it, right? So 3 hours, and say you're 120, $150 an hour, right? $450 for this plus mileage. If I can do it in 2 hours, I've now gained an hour of my day that you can add another job in or do whatever, or you can just be done for the day, whatever you want to do. So the return on investment and a lot of that stuff is an underrated thing, in my opinion. Um, and you don't see it, I don't always see it looked at that way. Oh, this is just better.
Mm,
How's it better? Right. I'm curious. Like, I don't know. I'm always curious to find out, new tools or new techniques or, this, that, or the other thing. And I like learning in general. So whether it's a machine that I'm learning about or a, a process or a skill, just one of those things that, and it shows that you invest in yourself, right? Like if you show up to a job site and you just have beat to shit equipment,
yeah.
whether you do a good job or a bad job, the first impression from that customer, that client, or that GC is gonna be like, this is what your stuff looks like. How much pride do you take in your work, right? Now, I'm not saying you have to have this immaculate laser cut, snap on everything, color coded thing, but show up to a job site and you don't have all the tooling you need, they look at you a little different, right? And by showing up and having what you need and looking the part, it definitely helps.
Well, and I mean, on the other end of that spectrum, when somebody shows up with all of that, the customer goes, okay, well, now I know what I'm paying for.
Right, exactly.
Which is sometimes is a negative thing. If you're not
Right.
super good at your job and you're showing up with brand new, crispy everything, top of line everything, no wonder
Yeah.
you're expensive.
Right.
But I am a big fan of that when people go, oh, I see. But then when the work's done, they're like, oh, I
Right.
see.
Right.
Yeah, because there's a couple perspectives. Interesting, very interesting. Mechanic stuff, man. I mean, that is something that I just never looked into. I was
Yeah.
like, am I going to put the amount of hours that I need to, like, quote unquote master car mechanic stuff like that? Am I ever going to have the space? Am I ever going to have the tools? Am I ever going to have the wherewithal to do all of that stuff? And I was like, no. So when I need something, I just take it to a mechanic. It's
Right.
just one day I'd like to have a shop, and then I'll start, you know, farting around with it.
Yeah.
I'll figure
Yeah.
it out.
For me, I didn't really know what I wanted to do when I got out of the military. Growing up where I did, like you see farms and heavy equipment. I remember like a little kid, we have like motor graders that would plow our street, and I would sit out there and watch it for hours. I didn't, I would watch them, and I loved big equipment. Um, but joined the service, didn't really do anything with it. Nothing with my trade. And then, John Deere came along, was like, hey, we're gonna, we'll pay for you to learn the skill set. And for whatever reason, the mechanic thing just kind of clicked. Like I remember growing up, I believe my dad said to my ex-wife when she bought a car, she's like, if you ever need anything done to it, Erik is the last person that will know what to do with it.
Ah,
And like at the time, it was true. Like I could check oil, I could change a battery, I could check like tire pressure.
okay.
Um, Never did I think I'd be like assembling, a $10 million crane or like diagnosing module boards and rewiring harnesses. Um, but yeah, I definitely, and that's the thing is like um my background's probably maybe it's more common than I think, I guess. Um, but I didn't really grow up tinkering with stuff. Like my dad was like the do it all, right? We had plumbing problems, he'd fix it. Electrical,
Hmm.
he'd fix it. Carpet, he'd fix it. Car stuff, he'd fix it. So like I was around somebody that could do a little bit of anything at any time, right? And I just kind of picked up on that, just in the sense that like you can either be rich enough to afford to pay somebody else to do it, or you have to be smart enough and diligent enough that you can do it yourself, right?
Right.
Ignorance is a luxury afforded to the rich.
Yes.
And that's like one of my big things, like because everybody comes from different walks of life, right? Like if you're wealthy enough to say, "Oh, I got a guy for that," that's fucking great.
Hmm.
More power. No shade thrown at it at all. Listen, if I had enough money that I could just pay somebody to fix all my problems, I probably would, being
Be dope.
honest. Um, but yeah, you just kind of learn to tinker with it, and you get like skills build on them, right? And I'm sure it's the same thing in yours, but like when you first start and you're doing like PM oil services, like changing oil and oil filters. All right, well, then you start changing out gaskets or water pumps or, oil coolers. And it just kind of builds and builds until, when somebody's like, oh man, I got, my radiator's leaking, I got this, that, and the other thing. And it's not really a daunting task. Like the most daunting part for you is like making sure that the parts are there when you need them.
Right.
And that's a really good feeling to have when you get to somewhere and like, oh, it's an easy day. The problem's like, I don't need to diagnose the problem. I'm just fixing it, right? Like the fixing part for me, typically the fixing part is the easy part. The diagnostic part is really where you have to turn on that big brain power, which
Yeah.
I don't always have.
I always look at that stuff as building a tree.
Mhm.
So like you've got the base of the tree is where you start, and then you can kind of do a little bit of this, a little bit of this, a little bit of this, and then as the next thing branches out, branches out, branches out, and then eventually you have a tree, and you can do
Right,
it.
right. And like your fundamentals of whatever your skill or create or craft is your roots, right?
Yeah.
If you don't have a good base and you start to get really, really big and expand on what you're doing, the tree's just going to fall down, right? So you want to build your base set of skills as thoroughly, as strongly, and not even so much that they're second nature, but like things just kind of click and build off of it, because then everything grows with itself versus everything just branching out.
Yeah. I mean, construction right away. I think I was there for 3 weeks, and I was like, I get this.
Mm-hmm.
Like it just, I understand.
Yeah.
I'm not good at it yet, but I get it.
Yeah.
And then you just start, doing more stuff, and then you get bored. And then you're
Yeah.
like, okay, I want to do the next stuff. Where's the next stuff?
Yeah. Try something different. And I think that's kind of where I wish that we could get more kids. And like, I'm a big advocate for getting people into the trades and doing high school talks and classroom talks and outreach programs. Um, because if they don't know what's out there, they just think everybody's digging ditches, right?
Yeah.
Like construction, like they're like, those dudes bust their ass. Like, why would you want to do that? Um, but there's so much more to it. Whether you're the laborer with a shovel scraping tracks, you're the dude in the wheel loader or the hoe, and you're moving the earth, you're pouring concrete and building pads, or whatever your skilled trade is, or whatever it is, like you're an integral part to the process, right? Everybody throws shady electricians because they don't clean up. I'm
Some
mixed on
do.
that. Right, like I've seen some dudes that do it, some dudes that don't. But if you enjoy being in a well-lit room or having like hot water,
Mm,
both things I like you need every trade, right? Like your house would look awful dumb if it didn't have fucking drywall.
yeah.
I like when I flush the toilet that it disappears from my home.
Yeah. It's a big part of it.
Right. Um, so I think it's just that it's not that it's not there, but you don't know what you don't know. So like if a kid's coming out of high school and all their parents have preached to them is college, 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 but like you don't really know what you want to do. Like I know at 18, I didn't know it. I mean, I
Man,
still, right? Like I want to do cool shit. I want to do rad shit with my rad friends.
I want
Um,
to do gnarly stuff. Yeah.
yeah. Um, but I think by doing classroom talks and like talking to me, like, listen, you don't have to be the dude digging holes. You can. It's a great way to start in it and get seat time and build on that. But maybe if you want to go to college, do project management,
Hmm.
do engineering. Also, if you're an engineer listening to this or a future engineer, consult with your local mechanic before making any engineer decisions because they suck. Anyways, but yeah, go find something that's going to be fulfilling, right? But on the flip side, find something that's going to be fulfilling that can also support you financially, right? Like maybe you're really into European pre-medieval history.
Cool.
Do you have a way for that to pay the bills? Like I like history as much as the next guy. I'm not going to focus my income around that.
Right.
Right.
And we call those hobbies.
Right. Correct. Right.
Yeah.
Like, I like fishing. I'm not banking my livelihood on fishing. Right. Like you and Brawley like video games. You're probably not banking your life on being a video game videoer. I don't
No.
know. But and I think that while social media is a really, really phenomenal thing, it can be, um, it's not always the most realistic, right?
No.
Because so like people can always show their wins, right? You can see somebody be like, man, this dude's having the best life. No, no, he's showing the best parts of his life, right?
That's
Or her
right.
life. But, well, so and so makes $1 million a year on video games. How many people do you think play video games? How many people make money? How many people make enough money that that's all they have to do?
Yeah.
It's like the pro sports thing, right? Like I want to be in the NHL. Okay. I live in the state of hockey. There's 5 million kids that play hockey. There's 15,000 that play high school hockey. There's 5,000 that start on the team, and there's 300 that go to college.
Yeah. A few hundred. Yeah.
You've already just crushed those numbers to get to the NHL, and that's one thing.
Yeah. And then you hurt
Right.
yourself.
Right. And that's kind of where it's like you want to make sure that, you know, do I think you have to love your job? Absolutely not. It definitely makes it easier. Like
Hmm.
I really enjoy what I do for work. My passion is what drives a lot of it. And I think that probably drives some of my success is because like I'm eager to learn more and pursue things in my career. Um, if your job is just where you go to earn a paycheck, that's fine too, right? Um, it just depends on what you want to do with your life.
I preach that all the time, where I'm like, if you don't like what you're doing and you're miserable, go find something that you love doing and get very good at it. And then you can make money doing that. And even if it's not a whole ton of money, it's what you love doing. But on the flip side of that, if you don't like working, go find the job that pays you the absolute most amount of money, put in the least amount of time that you have to have in it to
Right. Because then you can go
keep
do what
it,
you want to do.
and go do
Absolutely.
what you like to do outside of work. You don't have to love your job. You don't have to
No.
do that, but it's easier. And if you're going to dive face first into something like, for instance, the hours you put in the travel and like how it consumes your life outside of the things that you want to do, you
Right.
have to enjoy that,
Right.
because if
If
you
I didn't, I
don't,
would just be miserable as fuck.
that's
Right.
right.
And like that's the thing is like, and it's not a rule, but like it's kind of my rule. Like, if I'm going to be miserable, I'm going to make a lot of money and work the least amount of hours to maintain that. If I
Correct.
enjoy my job, I'll work as many hours as I want, right?
Yeah.
Because I enjoy it. And the benefit of mine is it pays pretty well. But yeah, you see some people in like they're in a skilled trade job and they're not trying to move up and they're miserable. And you're like, there's a lot of things you could do besides this. Like being miserable for, 3/5 of your life seems kind of silly, especially if you're not making enough money to go do what you want.
Mhm.
Like, I don't know, it's easy to say it's easy to say when you're not in that position, but fuck man, like everybody's hiring.
Yeah.
Go go like with the turnover rate that people have, go try pick the 5 careers you want to try and go find a job in one of them. You don't like it, move to the next one, right?
Mhm.
I don't know. Like I'm a big believer in like stick with it and get better. And after, X amount of time, if you're still unhappy, then it's not for you. No harm, no foul. You gave it your all. But if you're going to half ass it and be like, oh, I didn't really like it. Oh, you didn't really like it when you did the minimal effort for minimal time, minimal pay. Weird,
Yeah. Isn't that crazy?
bizarre.
Yeah, man. The outreach stuff that you do, is that through a crew?
Yeah.
Yeah. See, I looked into that, man. I think it's not a bad idea.
Yeah. I'll send
Like
you, I'll send you some info.
you should, man. Cause I like, drywallers, even now, are like, scum of the earth. Like, they're not important at all. But then you take a look at some of us where it's like, oh, that's really cool what you're doing. It's like, yeah, man, if you
Yeah,
want to be at the top, and I'm not saying that that's what I'm doing, but that's where I'm aiming for.
yeah,
Like, if you want to be the best at something, it pays. It doesn't
right,
matter what it is, collecting fish, like whatever.
right. If
Um,
you're at the top of whatever you're doing, unless the top of whatever you're doing is giving money away,
yeah,
it's probably pretty profitable,
yeah,
right? I don't care if you're a used tire salesman. I bet you that dude's got a brand new $80,000 truck, right?
yeah.
Like, and it's one of those things where it goes back to like, if you take pride in your work and you take pride in learning your craft or your trade, you can't really lose.
No,
Like, so either you come out, you go into something else and you come out of it with a skill set that you'll have for life, or you stick with it and you watch yourself rise up enough to be your own boss. Or if you want to run a company for somebody else, you can do, like, I'm not saying you have to work for yourself, but yeah, it's one of those things that like, why not invest in yourself? Why not give yourself the best odds at being successful in whatever you are or aren't doing?
well, and you and I were talking about settling down money the other day,
Mm-hmm.
and there's that too, man. Are you ready? Are you ready to settle down? Because if you're not, you don't like, you're
Yes.
doing yourself a disservice.
Yeah.
Like, like I would be miserable sitting at home by myself all day.
Right. Like we have a mechanic. So every shop that I've worked for has had a retired mechanic, and they retired from their other mechanic job or whatever they did. And because they don't want to sit at home and twiddle their thumbs, they come in and work. They may not work, they're not going to work as many hours as I work or some of the other guys, but they're staying busy and they're staying in it. And then there's some guys that retire and they have enough big hobbies or pastimes. Like we had a guy retire at 30, he worked for the same company for 37 years. He was a great dude. He retired and like nobody heard from him again working anywhere. And I talked to him. Well, he's got 40 acres. So he spends his time, building gardens out and putting flower planters in and keeping the equipment on the farm running and this, that. Like he fills his time with stuff that he enjoys doing. And then he's fulfilled that way, right? He doesn't need the numerical money. He's retired from a union with a 37-year pension. That dude's
Yeah.
fine,
Yeah.
right? So it's just because it's, everybody has these like numbers, right? Like at this year, you should have this much saved. Okay. At 62, you retire. If all you're doing is chasing that fucking retirement number, you either need to find a different job that you don't hate so much,
Hmm.
or just find something that drives you to do stuff, right? Because like I don't like sitting still very often.
Same.
Uh, I'm getting a little bit better at not necessarily sitting still, but like just taking some time to like going up to the lake, um, and just like check out, right? Like phone's off, you're just kind of resetting and getting everything going, and you're ready to hit again. Um, but I'm a busy, like if I have a week off for vacation, like I'm gonna go to my brother's for a week. I'm gonna do projects, right?
Mhm.
Like I don't have to. I could sit on the couch and do nothing all the whole time or whatever, but like I like to be busy doing stuff. Um, and if I can do stuff that benefits other people, great. If I can't, okay, right? But um, yeah, I don't know. Retirement, and that number that everybody chases, I think is just kind of a goofy thing.
Yeah.
Some people love retired life. Like my grandpa loves the retired life.
My dad loves it.
Dude, he gets up, reads his newspaper, drinks his coffee, watches, the stock exchange, watches the news every morning like clockwork, goes and plays his morning round of golf, comes back, has lunch, takes his nap, watches golf, makes dinner. That dude loves what he does, right? And on the flip side, my other grandfather, he retired and he retired young perspective. Well, he lives out in the woods of Wisconsin. So he rides 100 to 200 miles a week on his bike, like road bike, and he heats his house with firewood, like it's a wood stove.
Nice.
Not only does he feed the stove, he cuts the trees down, so he drops them, limbs them, lops them up, and then he splits them by hand with an axe. Not a machine, not a splitting maul, an axe, because he was a lumberjack for so long. Like that's what he does. So like he has his routine. He does this. He goes bowling on this day, and he donates his time here, and he's got his routine down. But like that man's as busy as I am. He's just busy in a different way, right? Like his busyness is dependent upon the season because he lives in a place that's what he likes to do. Could
Mhm.
he have retired in a retirement home? Yeah. Would he have liked it? No, he would have been like a jailbird trying to get out of that place, right?
Yeah, dude.
So it's all about perspective and what you want to do. Like if you can still work, it feels good and you enjoy doing it, you don't have to retire at 63. Why would you do that? Like you can work till you're past that, you collect your benefits or whatever it is, but like you're working, you're making money, you're probably making good money because you're now the real senior person. Um, and now you don't have to chase overtime, right? Like if you're not going to work because you need the money, then you work your regular, you eat and skate and you go find a hobby, tinkering
So,
on a motorcycle, a car, whatever.
so case in point, the first large team that I ran construction
Mhm.
was for a big company that we were building a Vision truck rental or truck shop, and this carpenter that was working under me, to me in the beginning, it was like you are doing the bare minimum, and you are so much more and better than that. I don't get it. And then the more I got to know him, I was like, you should be running this team. I don't get it. And I pulled him off to the side one time and we went and got a couple of beers and I started talking to him. And he's independently wealthy.
Mhm.
He's like, I'm here. So I'm not just at home, like drinking myself to death or like
Yeah.
doing stupid shit. I enjoy carpentry for the very low number that they're paying me. They're getting way more out of me. It's a fair deal, but I don't want to run teams. I don't want any stress. I
Yeah.
don't want to be rushed. I
Right.
want to do what I want to do. I want to do it to the best of my abilities. And that's it.
Right.
And it all kind of clicked where I was like, wow, that
Right.
makes a lot of sense. Yeah, it was very interesting.
Yeah. But
Yeah, dude. It's good to have you on.
absolutely.
We didn't talk
Feel
at we didn't talk
good.
at all about troll. I know, me too, dude. Like
Yeah.
it.
I messaged Teak. Those hats she's got are sick.
They're dope, dude.
I
They're
saw the,
dope.
the one with like the crest almost on it. I think she was
Mhm.
like paddleboarding or whatever. I'm like, "God, I gotta give me one of them hats." Um, yeah, that one. Oh, good. See, this is why we need the bigger hat game, right? Because like I got this hat's tight on my head, and I have two snaps
Yeah.
remaining.
So this hat right at the front here
Yeah,
has some elastic.
look at
Like
that.
her hats are super dope. I grabbed one of my old hats and I folded the brim up like this. Like way
Yeah,
back in the day, we used to do that and like almost straight up
yep.
it.
I still do it.
Yeah, me too, man. And she hands me the hat and she was like, by the way, this is kind of what I was going to start doing with my hats. Do you want to do it? And it was exactly that. And I was like, yeah, dude, I will rock your hat like that. No problem.
Yeah,
Yeah, they're dope, man. She's super cool, man.
yeah.
I've gotten to know her pretty good. And then we had her out to do some work, and we've worked on a
Thanks.
couple of sites together. She's solid.
Yeah,
Yeah, dude. Tron was talking about doing a get together, and I think
yeah,
there's a bunch of them down there. But I
yeah.
mean, that's something I'd fly in for.
Yeah, they're all on Utah, like Ogden or whatever. That seems to be. I mean, like there's. I bet you a third of that group lives out there, like in
I
the at least in the surrounding states. That's for sure something that I would go out for. I was talking about Brock about coming out and meeting up with him and hanging out and doing whatever. But yeah, it's a dope place. I got a bunch of buddies that live out in northern Utah and shit like that, southern Idaho. So yeah,
it's gorgeous.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, for sure, man. I Yeah, I'd be down, man. I think that'd be cool just to see everybody. Well, when Slim was talking about doing like those career days,
yeah, dude, that'd be dope.
man, I was like, I commented on the post of like, you ever need a drywaller, let me know. And then I sat down and I was like, okay, CSR has everything that we need. like materials wise. Columbia has all the tools in the world. And then I messaged him back privately and was like, so if you do this, I want to know about it and I would really love to be a part of it.
Yeah.
Um, because once you get doing it and you understand it, I can do that up here. You can do
Yep.
that where you're from. Like, and
Yeah, and like that's the big thing. Like that's one of the big things with like crew is that we get people, we kind of educate. Well, there's a whole ambassador program, and
mhm,
it's like a school curriculum, and we basically are helping you become a better advocate for the trades as a whole, but also for whatever you're doing, right? So there's so many untapped markets in general, right? Veterans, like high school kids, like you go to like high school career fair days, the skilled trades are in the back corner, which maybe we need to be because we're a little rowdy, but like they preach college so hard. And I don't think there's ever been a time in the world that you've needed less formal education to make good money and be
yeah.
fulfilled, right? So,
I
yeah.
mean, to learn something inside and out, you can hop on an AI and say, I want you to explain to me like you would explain to a 5-year old XYZ, and it will. Like that's probably years of curriculum that something will spit at you in a very simple way.
Yeah.
There was no such thing 20, 30 years ago. Like going to school, you had to. Like there were books that people were reading out of and like positions that it was very specific. Now, I think like a brain surgeon is always going to need to go to school.
Right. Yeah. Right.
Period.
But like you look at how many people are running in, we'll say, like the financial world, right?
Right.
They don't have an MBA from Harvard, but they probably know more than a lot of people. They might not know, well, in fucking 1997 when they made this law change, but they can trade, right? They
Yeah.
understand how financial markets work, right? Like um I'm taking some random like coding classes for computer science just to kind of like
Yo.
that works. Um One of them is from an Ivy League school, so I feel a little bit out of my element there, but
Okay.
um yeah, dude, like you can learn anything on the internet. And you probably don't have to pay for it. If you do, you pay a minimal amount. But like there's YouTuber, if you want to learn how to do something, type that shit into fucking YouTube. I guarantee you there's somebody that's doing it. They may not be, the certified caterpillar, yada yada yada. But then again, you have guys like Keldon or Adept Ape or Heavy Wrencher or Caterpillar Wrenching that are, and they make a bunch of videos. Like, oh man, like how do you make a valve adjustment on a 3406B? You look it up, and there's some dude that's got his camera here that he's like trying to like take,
Yeah.
but you can hear and see what he's doing. You're like, oh shit, that's how you do it. All right, all right. Like, hey, this is a cool rule of thumb. So then, you have the baseline of it, and you can always find the book spec on anything, right? Like everything's
Yeah.
public now. Like I can find book spec on how to remove boom lattices from a 222 crawler. Most people have no idea what that is. They hear and they're like, that's a crane. You're like, yeah, but it's not just like Legos, right? There's a YouTube video about it, or Manitowoc makes all their shit public.
Which is dope.
Yeah. So I don't know. I'm a big advocate for it. More I can do it. Like Samson's gonna have they have like I think they're like career day things at his school. So like I'll go in and talk about like my career. They have book reading days, so like I'll go in and read like a construction book to the class or whatever it is. And it's just little shit like that that you kind of like if you can put that cool factor in a kid's brain, um, it just sticks, right? And they just build on it. Like they think of this and that, and all of a sudden, it's I don't know. I'm a big advocate for it.
I think there are a lot of little brains out there that would be stimulated by what I do, and they would
Right.
be
Yeah.
very good at it.
Right. Yeah.
Um, creativity is not drawing. It
Right.
is, but I mean, that's
Yeah.
not the end of it.
No, that's not like the end
Um,
of
yeah, man,
right.
it's
So
it's pretty cool stuff.
it is.
Uh, how long do you think we've been on?
No,
We're good.
for nine.
We're getting there. 2 hours maybe.
Yeah, something like that.
When's your test in the morning?
Like 6:30,
Ooh, okay.
but do a little bit more studying tonight and then fucking call her a night.
Yeah, man. It was a
Yeah, I was at
pleasure.
Buffalo. I was at like Buffalo Wild Wings and I had like all my like schematics laid out, my laptop stuff. And he's like, "You want anything?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'll take a beer." At one point, I was like, "I'm done studying, listening to the same replay of Britney Spears." So I would head back, but I'm feeling pretty good about it. My knowledge is. I get super nervous for tests, and I not to knock on wood, like I always test well. So like the first two classes, I got 100% in every test, every homework, and every quiz. But I was still nervous as shit the night before, the day before, the day. Like you're just like, I gotta do this, gotta do this, gotta do this. And like there's dudes in the class that are like, if I fail, whatever. I'm like, if you fail, you're fucking out, nerd. Like,
Yeah.
what the fuck you mean if you fail? Like maybe your boss is different than mine.
My my nervousness that comes is how prepared I am.
Yeah.
Like, and especially when it's something I've not done before, I can be as prepared as I want. But if it's something that I don't know I've done, it's like,
Mhm.
okay, like I've made a hell of a plan. I've kind of looked at how to do it. I've wrapped my head around it, but we've not done this before.
Right.
Yeah. And then typically when your brain is like that, you are over prepared. And
Yeah.
because of that, you're great. And yeah, like I think I would be good. I think I would be a good student now
I'd
because
be a I'm a way better student now than when I was in high school and for
I
sure in
bet.
college. College was like, and
Yeah.
then I went back to school, and I remember going back to school. I had a newborn, an almost 2 year old, and I worked 60 hours a week, and I had a full course schedule. And that last semester of school, I think my GPA was a 3.9
Okay.
with all that going. I'm like, all right, so like I got this, I got to figure this out now, right? Like I know how to study, I know how to prepare, I know where I need to put work in, this, that, and the other thing. Plus, you get life experience, right? You just
Yeah.
honestly, you just fuck.
Yeah. Just do stuff.
Right,
I always tell people that if you just do stuff, it's good to know what you don't want to do.
right,
Go do random shit. It's
yep,
I'm not gonna be good at it. Good. Maybe you like it though.
right. Maybe it's a hobby.
Or maybe it's something you're like, I really liked that and I suck
Yeah,
at it, but I would get good at that. And then
yeah,
it's a whole other thing. I think so. I think school is really stupid now, just because of what you get for what you get, or what you
mhm,
pay, or what you put into it. But school is one of those places where if you are congregating with people, you are going to find people super passionate about things that you don't know anything about.
yeah,
And that's huge because you're not going
exactly.
to walk down the street and find somebody super passionate about stuff. Like the percentages of that is very low. But when you're in a scholastic environment, you are going to find people like that. And I think it's more of like figuring out the rest of it, not quite what you're there for, at least in my opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. I should let you study.
All right, buddy. Always
Okay.
good to be on. Good to chat.
Yeah, dude. Give me a call. Let me know how your
Absolutely.
let me know how your testing goes.
Will do.
Okay, everybody. Be humble, treat everyone the same, and do your fucking job.